Welcome back to the channel. In today's video I am quite rightly addressing you from my car. But don't be alarmed because I'm in a car park and I'm parked up and stationary. So today I'm going to address you about the rules of the highway code and how they might affect a claim, whether that be a civil claim or indeed a criminal claim against you. Now, lots of people tend to say that the highway code is merely guidance and doesn't really apply in terms of law and hard and fast rules. However, many areas of the highway code are supported by legislation, and many of them create offences. In other words, they are a must or must not requirement under the rules, and contravening that must or must not requirement might amount to an offence under various pieces of legislation. And even in the areas where that is not so, and it can be deemed to be simple guidance, then if you are met with a civil claim, or indeed a criminal allegation against you, if you are taken to have breached those rules, whether they are mandatory or otherwise, those will be taken into account when the court is trying to decide whether or not you are liable in a civil sense or whether you've committed the offence with which you've been charged. On my journey of about 45 minutes this morning alone, I've had numerous examples of other drivers cutting across lanes and narrowly missing my vehicle, sometimes forcing me into another lane to avoid the collision. Of course, I have to check whether I have space to move first, because of course if I avoid the collision by moving into the path of another vehicle and there's a collision between me and the other vehicle, then they may well want to claim against me, in which case I'm going to have to claim against the driver that was driving badly to force me to move in the first place. So very quickly in claims like this, you can end up with 3, 4, 5 or even more parties to a claim. Many road traffic collisions have numerous parties all claiming an indemnity against another. So you get a long list of parties, many of whom are claiming an indemnity against someone else. An indemnity is simply blaming someone else and asking them or their insurance company to pick up the damages that are claimed against you. And of course, with relatively high quality dash cam footage that's around today, most of this can be captured on fairly high quality video. And so then how is the court to look at all this to decide who is to blame? Well, the only way to do this is for the court to try to assess from any of the evidence, including any of the video footage, and then assess the rules and who was complying with those rules of the road and who was not. Very often it will be blatantly clear that one party is wrong and the other is not. Other times it might not be quite so clear cut, and it might be on a fairly fine balance where one witness's evidence might well say that they did look to check at the first instance before they moved, but perhaps they didn't look back again just before they did so. In which case the court is likely to find that they should have perhaps looked again before having moved, and in fact they might be at least partially to blame. And this is where the very nuance of the highway code comes in. The highway code says various things. You must or must not do something, and you should and should not do something. It also provides best guidance in multiple scenarios with a view to guiding you to drive safely. So for those that think the highway code is just guidelines, I'm here to tell you that I have been in and out of court where the highway code is most certainly used to decide whether a party was in the right or in the wrong, and therefore whether they are liable for damages. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you some of my dashcam footage on the journey home this evening. So for these clips, I wanted to actually emphasize that these arrows on the floor indicating that you should keep left or move left are actually quite important because most people don't really respect what they are. For example, in this clip here, the arrow is actually telling cars to merge on the right hand side because that's where they will all end up. But of course the two vehicles in front of me are struggling as to who should go first, hence the van had to apply his or her brakes and is still on the brakes even now. Likewise here you can see the same van is kind of forced to move to the left because the two right hand lanes are merging into one and clearly doesn't want to get stuck behind these vehicles. And it seems that this journey is just full of these situations where lanes merge into one, just like going through this set of lights here where these two lanes are going to merge into one, and ultimately the vehicle in front should get priority, but you can see everybody's brake lights indicating that there's almost some kind of unspoken dispute as to who should be in front. Now we have this situation at the traffic lights where not everybody is just quite sure which lane they're supposed to be in, either before the roundabout or on the roundabout, and finally when coming off the roundabout. Bit of a clue, the arrows on the floor will tell you which lane will go in which direction. You can see on the right hand side there is a right arrow on the right hand lane. This is telling you that it is going right and that it will not go straight on, so you should not be in that right hand lane if you plan to go straight on. For the most part, I'm pleased to say most vehicles know which lane they're supposed to be in. That is, of course, but for this small white vehicle passing in front. And finally, this little fellow that lots of people have difficulty with because there's a lane closure 200 yards ahead and lanes are going to have to merge together. As per my own guidance, I am sensibly using all lanes available and successfully merge into the next lane without any issue whatsoever. This is what I encourage everybody to do, and it's perfectly normal and safe. Overall, I find that this works far better when everybody is working as a flow, as a traffic flow with each other, with other vehicles, and respecting the rules of the road and respecting other road users. So I implore you to respect each other, work with each other as road users, and as always, stay humble and subscribe.